بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And it's a small gathering, but it's a very important subject. And in a small gathering, we get a chance to have more interaction with the gathering. So don't expect you're going to sit down quietly. You're going to have to talk. And we have to have an exchange of views. Let me begin by defining our topic. Modi, Hindu India, and Akhiru Zaman, or the end time. This is our topic, and it is by no means an easy topic. It's a very challenging topic and a very interesting topic. And tonight I invite you to think. I hold the view that the relationship between Islam and Hinduism and Muslims and Hindus in India and around India is a subject which should be handled by other scholars and not by me. I am devoting my time far more to the relationship between Muslims and Christians. When we come to the subject of Hinduism and the end time, let me begin by warning that this is not a lecture in which we're going to be bashing Hinduism and bashing Hindus and saying what bad people they are. Not at all. That is not the way of our Prophet, Allah's blessing be upon him. And that is not our way. Indeed, there are Hindus, and some of them write to me. I get their emails. Sheikh, we believe in one God. That's right. There are Hindus who believe in one God because the Vedas speak of one God. And there are also Hindus who stand up with integrity, with character, to live lives of virtue and good ethics and morality. I grew up with such Hindus in Trinidad. But for the Hindu religion, we must make the same comment that we make about Judaism, about Buddhism, about Christianity, about Islam, that religion is based on truth. And truth in religion does not change every time Britain changes a prime minister. Truth is not relative. Truth is absolute. It does not change with every passing cloud. Truth is eternal. No Hindu will dispute that. Most of all, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, who was honored by his people to be given the title Mahatma, the great soul, Mahatma. And truth which does not change, which is eternal, is absolute truth. This is a philosophical term. Absolute truth. And this is what the Quran says. Let me begin my first reference from the Quran. بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وإنه لحق اليقين. And in this book there is absolute truth. No politician in the world today believes that. None. Every politician in the world today believes in something called nationalism and on the superiority of the state and of the Constitution as the highest law and so on. This is the nonsense that they have. No politician believes in absolute truth anymore. Absolute truth is forgotten in the world today. And people believe our race, our tribe, our nation, that's where our loyalty lies. Most of all, the Turkish people. And therefore, when age comes, Akhiru Zaman, I say to my Hindu audience, wherever you are and you're listening to this lecture, when the Akhiru Zaman comes, it is absolute truth which will prevail. But now we come to the first problem, and that is the Quran speaks of history having a beginning and having an end. That history is linear. And the Christian believes that, and the Jew believes that. All those who came from Father Abraham, Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam, we all believe that history had a beginning and history will have an end. And therefore, we can understand something called the end time. But the history is not linear. History is cyclic. It begins, it goes around, it comes to an end, and then it repeats itself. And it keeps on repeating itself endlessly, eternally. And so Hinduism does not have a conception of an end time. What they have is the end of a cycle, which will then make way for a new cycle to replace it. But for us, we now live in the end time. And at the end of this end time, of this age, the universe, the material universe, is going to be transformed into something which is, Allah says, غَيْرَ الْأَرْضِ وَالسَّمَاوَاتِ, something which is different from the present material universe that is coming. And our conception of the end time is that after that transformation of the universe, there will be something called resurrection. When all those who have died and have been buried or cremated or in the sea, wherever you are, you're going to be brought back to life. And then there is something called the Day of Judgment, when all of us are going to be judged. And the politician is going to have the biggest problem of all on Judgment Day. And then after that there is Jannah and Jahannam. This is our view, but the Hindu view is different. And it is not for me in this lecture to explain what is the Hindu view. So we are lecturing tonight on the basis of our view, not theirs, of the end time. And we say that the end time is one in which absolute truth will prevail. Any religion which has truth in it, regardless of how much truth there is, that truth will survive. And because that truth will survive, there will be those amongst the Hindus who can survive in the end time, on the condition that they hold on to whatever is left on truth in Hinduism. And these are the ones who are writing to me and saying to me, Sheikh, we believe that there is one God, and we are Hindus, and we stand up against oppression, because absolute truth has zero tolerance for oppression. Having said that, we now ask the question, who identifies oppression? Do you ask the oppressor, or do you ask the oppressed? Huh? My question is directed to the Foreign Minister of India, who is defending his country. When the Rahbar, the supreme leader of Iran, I think maybe 1 week ago, the supreme leader of Iran, Sayyid Ali Khamenei, who is like Vladimir Putin, a man you don't play around with. The two best leaders we have in the whole world today, one is Christian, Vladimir Putin, and one is Muslim, Ali Khamenei of Iran. I am not Shia, but when I recognize that someone is standing up for truth, I must mention it. And this is what Ali Khamenei said. He condemned all those who were oppressing their people. And he mentioned Israel at the top of the list. And because he mentioned India, it stung the foreign minister. And he, who belongs to the administration, the government, and therefore the oppressor, he was denying that there is oppression. But who defines oppression? Who recognizes oppression? Is it the oppressor or the oppressed? We say that there is oppression in India, in Hindu India, but we don't blame all Hindus for that, but we most certainly say of the government of India today, and it doesn't matter to us who are those who differ with us and who want to part with us. As one Hindu scholar in Trinidad decided, I parted from him. He didn't part from me, I parted from him. He might listen to this lecture. When he continued to support Modi, when I was saying Modi is an oppressor, a warmongering government. Ali Khamenei is correct. Because if you ask the Muslims of India, what do they say on the subject? Their cry is universal. 99% of the Muslims of India say the same thing, that we are oppressed. So the government of India can continue to sing whatever song they want to sing. It does not impress us. We ask them, not only do the Muslims of India now, under this present government, consider themselves to be oppressed, but more than that, most of all the Muslims of Kashmir. In 1947, when India and Pakistan were born, and fighting broke out in Kashmir, And this is not the occasion for us to go into the history of that fighting. The government of India decided to take the matter up with the Security Council of the United Nations. This was India's government decision. The Security Council of the United Nations deliberated on the subject of Kashmir and then decided that the people of Kashmir should decide their future. The people of Kashmir should decide their future, not the ruler of Kashmir, the people of Kashmir. And the method through which the people of Kashmir would decide on the future was called a plebiscite, like an election. If in 1948 that plebiscite was held, and if about 70% of Muslims in Kashmir decided to vote against India, I asked Hindu India today from Ilford, and there are many who will be listening to this lecture in India. I asked them, if it was 70% in 1948, what would it be today? Would it be less or would it be more? The answer is you probably get 100% voting today not to be a part of India. That is the evidence staring you in your face, and no amount of juggling with truth can convince otherwise, that the people of Kashmir perceive themselves to be oppressed. What explains this oppression? Which brings us to the meat of the lecture today. The days, as I perceive it, and I'm speaking these words in particular for Russia to pay attention to me, that I see a similarity, an amazing parallel between Hinduism and Judaism. In the same way that there are Jews who are hostile to the state of Israel and who were supporting the oppressed Palestinians. I knew them. I was living in New York. And when we go to demonstrate in New York in front of the United Nations, and these Jews will see me with my gown and my hair, they'll all come and stand around me. All come and stand around me. They were in Brooklyn. So too there are Hindus who are a people of character and integrity, and who denounce oppression, particularly in Palestine. But can we deny that the Jewish religion has been hijacked today? Can we deny the fact that the overwhelming majority of Jews in the world today have been supporting Israel and supporting Israeli oppression? Around the world today, mankind is beginning to realize and wake up that Israel is an oppressor state. And what Israel is doing to the Palestinians qualifies as oppression. And because we now have something called the media, the internet, which can no longer be controlled by people who own the newspapers and own the television stations and so on. It is now possible for news to travel far and wide without being censored. So while it was possible in the past to cover up Israel's crimes, it was not possible this time. And as the news was spreading all over the world, students in the United States of America, in so many university campuses, were holding demonstrations condemning Israeli oppression, something unheard of before, because the United States was firmly in the grip of the Zionists. And so now it's becoming plain and clear to mankind that Israel is an oppressor state. What has happened in Israel is that Israel was born as a secular state with secular parties ruling the government. But now no more. The religious parties have now taken over the country. And it is the religious parties who are taking Israel further and further down the road of oppression. But Judaism, the religion, condemns oppression. The Jewish people who are faithful to truth in Judaism would not be oppressors. So the transformation of Israel from a secular society with a secular political system and a secular government with secular political parties to a state today which is led by religious parties has resulted in an escalation of oppression and a betrayal of whatever remains of truth in Judaism. And now, tonight from Ilford, I want to warn Hindu India that the same road on which Judaism has walked in the end time to reach where it is today, perceived by mankind as oppressor, that's the same road on which Modi is taking India. And so if you are a supporter of the Indian government, it's time for you to open your eyes and wake up, because tomorrow it'll be too late. Tomorrow they will do the same thing on the campuses of universities around the world to India, what they're doing today to Israel. What has happened in India was that Gandhi failed. Gandhi did not succeed. Gandhi, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, wanted, when the British were thrown out of Britain, of India, he wanted Hindus to live according to truth in Hinduism. So he wanted a Hindu state. And he didn't get that. The Indian National Congress went on a different road from Gandhi to create India as a secular state, not as a Hindu state. The Muslims wanted the same thing that Gandhi wanted. the Muslims were led by the Khilafat movement. And the Khilafat movement wanted to get rid of the British. And when the British were thrown out, Muhammad Ali Jinnah didn't want to throw out the British. No. He wanted to get a constitutional agreement with the British. He's a lawyer. So he wouldn't use the language, throw out the British. But Gandhi would use that language, throw the British out. And the Khilafat movement will use that language, throw the British out. But Muhammad Ali Jinnah would not use such language. And Dr. Muhammad Iqbal would not use such language. Let me just put that into the records. So the Khilafat movement wanted to throw the British out. And when the British were thrown out, that the Muslims in India would live in accordance with truth in Islam. So Gandhi went to the Khilafat movement, the leaders, Abdul Bari, Maulana Abdul Bari was the leader. And he said to them, what you want is what we want. We both want the same thing. So let us join forces. This is what Gandhi said. If I am wrong, kindly correct me. And when we throw the British out, the Hindus will live in accordance with truth in Hinduism, and the Muslims will live in accordance with truth in Islam. And then you'll have to work for a political framework for that. And the Khilafat movement responded and said, yes, we want an alliance with you. And Gandhi said, my condition is only one condition, you must stop killing the cow. And the Khilafat movement said, deal, we stop killing the cow. We respect your belief. You have reverence for the cow, and some of you even worship the cow, so we stop killing the cow. And so the alliance was born. But that alliance posed the gravest threat that Britain as an imperial power ever experienced in the 300 years that Britain remained an imperial power. The gravest threat of all that Britain ever experienced was the alliance of Hindus and Muslims led by Gandhi and the Khilafat movement. And they went to work to sabotage it. And Mustafa Kemal played a role in sabotaging it, but that's not our subject today. In the end, what emerged was a secular state. That India was born as a secular state, and the Indian National Congress was a secular party. And Pakistan was born as a secular state, although there are those with pagri and dari who would say otherwise. But Pakistan was most certainly born as a secular state. And the constitution of Pakistan and everything pertaining to the politics of Pakistan was secular. And what has happened to India is the same thing that happened to Israel. That while you had the long years of Jawaharlal Nehru leading India, I don't think he was Hindu. No, I can't find any Hinduism in Jawaharlal Nehru, either in his political life or in his personal life. Not the Hindus with whom I grew up in Trinidad, men of character and integrity. I didn't see that in Jawaharlal Nehru. Anyhow, India had a secular government for all these years until the same thing happened to India as happened to Israel. That religious parties some of whom were implicated in the assassination of Mohandas Gandhi. They didn't like what he was doing in his prayer sessions. Gandhi would begin a prayer session with people reciting from the Quran, like Vladimir Putin today kisses the Quran. When you are as head of state, when you kiss the Quran today, tomorrow all of Russia will kiss the Quran. And therefore you are showing respect for the Quran, even if you don't believe in it as yet. You are respecting the book. And they didn't want that. But Gandhi wanted that. Gandhi would begin his prayer sessions with people reciting from all the scriptures, including the Quran. One of the reasons why he was assassinated was because there is that part of the Hindu world which was not prepared to show respect for the Quran, as there is that part of the Jewish world today which has become the greatest enemies of all of Muslims. So then what is the end time going to be looking like? So long as these Hindus continue to control power in India. I'm hoping that this lecture will provoke you to think and that you'll offer your comments. Because when you offer your comments, there are going to be people all around the world who are going to be hearing you eventually. The prognosis which I have to offer is that while India's foreign policy today shows many things in it with merit, for example, the monetary system that controls the world of money, in which the International Monetary Fund is at the heart, and the US dollar is His Majesty the King, is an oppressor, oppressing mankind. And when China led the way, supported by Russia, to resist this monetary oppression and to create something called BRICS as an alternative to the monetary system, India joined. India joined them. And so too did South Africa, and so too did Brazil. India did the right thing in supporting BRICS. Today BRICS has, I believe, 130 countries. 149 countries, either members of BRICS or knocking on the door to become members of BRICS. But at the same time that India is supporting a monetary system that is resisting Wall Street, India is also dancing with Wall Street. When those who control the monetary system decided the time had come for us to move away from paper money to reach a cashless world. And you will excuse my language, and all the sheep and cattle and goats and camels in the world who have nothing in their head but peanuts welcome the cashless world. They welcome the cashless world, including, of course, all the politicians. But the cashless world is precisely what they want, the enemy. Because once money becomes digital, electronic, you no longer have any independence. You can't take your money home. You can't do what he did in Surah Al-Kahf. He dug a hole and he buried it. You can't bury electronic money. When the Prophet Samuel appointed Saul or Talut as king, this is in Surah Al-Baqarah of the Quran, the Israelite people protested. How can you appoint him as the king? He doesn't even have 1 kilogram of money. He doesn't have even 1 kilogram of money. The Quran, of course, doesn't use the term kilogram. They use the other term used at that time, a sa. But can you weigh electronic money, you dum-dum? Can you weigh electronic money? But money in the Quran has weight. Money in the Quran has weight. No politician believes that, of course. And yet you go voting for them. India danced to Wall Street and demonetized the Indian 500 rupee note and 1,000 rupee note. Was it 500 and 1,000? Huh? 500 and 1,000. And caused a lot of trouble for the poor. The poor. Many people lost their wealth because they were saving their money underneath a pillow, and they were not in a position now to provide evidence. Where did I get this money from? So they're afraid if I go with this money to try to get it changed now to electronic money, I might be arrested. And said they choose to lose their money rather than court arrest. And so Modi gave a display of ethics in the world of monetary economics that can best be described as opportunism, the politics of expediency and of opportunism. These are harsh words, and there are many in India who are going to be annoyed with me. But the same politics of expediency and opportunism, which is there in India's policy, foreign policy, that was displayed in the world of monetary economics, same thing in politics. India has become a very close friend of Russia. And when the war began in Ukraine and the Western world was imposing sanctions on Russia, that Russia could not export their oil, that Europe will not buy Russian oil, and the Western world was putting pressure on India to impose sanctions on Russia. India said, no, we'll not do that. When the Western world was putting pressure on Russia with the banking system called SWIFT, and Russia was attempting to get around it, and Russia said, we'll sell our oil for gold. And India said, we'll pay. And Iran got their oil sold for gold. And India was showing resistance of the West. And this was something admirable in India's foreign policy. The Indian government has consistently refused to bow to Western pressure to impose sanctions on Russia and to turn against Russia. And so we commend India for standing steadfastly with Russia when the entire Western world is hostile to Russia and imposing sanctions upon Russia. What did India do? India decided to buy Russian oil in a massive amount at a discounted price and then sell the oil to Europe. Yes, sell the oil to Europe. And so they got around the sanctions and they made a lot of money from it. Kudos to India for that. But there seems to be the same ambivalence, the same politics of expediency in India's relationship with Russia as there is in India's relationship with BRICS, that you're playing both sides. You're playing both sides. And that is, you can see what happened just recently, that Narendra Modi, when he was re-elected as Prime Minister, the first place he went to visit was Russia. And the Western world cried out loud. So then what did he do? He went to visit Ukraine. It's called a balancing act. Can you expect that kind of conduct from Iran? No. Iran had a leader like no other leader in the whole world, who pointed his finger at Washington and he said to Washington to your face, "You are Shaitanul Kabir," the great Satan. Can you imagine a Pakistani Prime Minister doing that? A Bangladeshi Prime Minister? Or a Malaysian Prime Minister? Or an Indonesian President? Or an Algerian President? Or an Egyptian? They'll never do that. But that's what Ayatollah Khomeini did, rahimahullah. He pointed his finger at Washington and he said, "You are Shaitanul Kabir." And in the end time, if you do not recognize modern Western civilization as the greatest oppressor of all times, you're on the wrong side of history. But what India is doing under this government is playing both sides. I don't talk about Pakistan because the Yankee puppy dogs who control Pakistan and the armed forces, they're a waste of time. So Pakistan has no role to play in history until Pakistan wins her freedom. And we pray for that day to come when Pakistan will be free for the first time since Pakistan was born. But India is playing both sides. And in Akhiru Zaman, it is absolute truth which will prevail. And absolute truth does not allow you to play both sides. India is hedging herself, keeping on good terms with the Western world and keeping on good terms with Russia. I want to end the lecture having spoken about economics and having spoken about politics, to now speak about society, the social order, and about the moral and spiritual life. I come from the island of Trinidad, and we are an exceptional island in that the original people who lived in that island today have almost disappeared. In Singapore, they still have not disappeared. They're probably about 15% of the population now, the original people, the Malay people. But in Trinidad, they've almost disappeared. And the African slaves who were brought by the British, and the Indian immigrant laborers who were brought by the British, and the Chinese who came as businessmen, and the Arabs, mostly Christian, who came as businessmen. These are the people who control the country now. So we have a substantial proportion of the population that is Christian. But they are Christianity of the Western world, not the Orthodox world. We have a significant number of Hindus, and we have a small minority of Muslims. And when the country became independent, so-called independence, the religions had no role to play in that process and in the constitution being established. No role at all. And Trinidad and Tobago came into being as a secular state in which religion is not allowed any role to play in the state and the society, institutional role. After 60 years, the society is collapsing, and there's rampant crime, kidnapping, killing, raping, as though everywhere you turn there are criminals around the corner. Our Prophet warned about this time. He said, I see herds falling on your rooftops like rain. They ask, O Messenger of Allah, what is harj? He said, killing and slaughter, to such an extent that the one who is killed would not know why he was killed, and the one who is killing would not know why he was killing. They're only paying him and he goes and he kills. So we now live in a collapsing society in Trinidad. And I, as an Islamic scholar, I have warned, I said, we can't change that. That ship is sinking. And we can't help you. What we can do is those of us who want to live the religious way of life, we will separate ourselves from your society, as they did in Surah Al-Kahf of the Quran. And we will build small, God-fearing communities in the remote countryside. And in these small communities, we try to survive with our faith intact. And my warning for India is that you are going to suffer the same fate. I grew up with Hindus who were men and women of integrity and character. Tomorrow in Hinduism, in Hindu India, everyone will be a crook. And the pious Hindu, the Hindu who has faith in his heart, would ask himself, what has happened to my country? Because you have lost the truth in religion. And the religion that you now have is an oppressor. And there can be no oppression in truth. So Hinduism is likely to suffer. Hindu India is likely to suffer the same fate as Jewish Israel, that you are going to become a society of people who lose all capacity of living lives of character and integrity, living lives of fidelity to truth, and living lives which abstain from oppression. This is all I have to say, and this is no more than an introductory lecture. I wish I don't have to do more on this subject. I wish that there are other scholars who will come and take over from me so I can remain with my subject. I believe there are many Muslims in India who will benefit from this introductory lecture that I've given. The fate that awaits you in India is the same fate that has come to the Palestinian people. Thank you. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.